Eternal Rome, the rise, reign, and legacy of the ancient world's greatest empire. Every empire has a beginning. Every civilization has a story. But few stories in human history match the sheer ambition, brutality, creativity, and endurance of ancient Rome. For over 1,000 years, Rome shaped the world, its laws, its language, its very idea of what civilization could be. This is that story. In the beginning, there was a river, a set of 7 hills, and a legend. According to Roman tradition, the city was founded in 753 BCE by Romulus, a man who, along with his twin brother Remus, was said to have been nursed by a she-wolf after being abandoned as infants on the banks of the Tiber. It's a wild story, and the Romans loved it. They traced their origins all the way back to the Trojan War, claiming that a Trojan hero named Aeneas fled the burning city of Troy and eventually made his way to Italy, where his descendants would one day found the greatest city on earth. But myth aside, the real story of Rome's origins is almost as dramatic. Around 1000 BCE, a group of Latin-speaking farmers and shepherds settled on the hills near the Tiber. The location was strategic, far enough from the coast to avoid pirate raids, close enough to the river for trade and fresh water. Over centuries, these small villages merged. They traded with their neighbors, the Etruscans to the north, the Greeks to the south. The earliest Rome was a kingdom, ruled by a succession of 7 kings, some legendary, some likely historic. The first was Romulus himself. The last was Tarquinius Superbus, Tarquin the Proud, a tyrant so cruel that his name became synonymous with everything Rome would come to despise. 509 BCE, the Roman people had enough. They drove Tarquin out of the city. They abolished the monarchy, and in its place, they built something radical, a republic, a government not of one man, but of many, a system of laws, of elected officials, of checks and balances, or at least that was the idea.
The Roman Republic's government structure, power flowed from the Senate to the consuls, then to praetors, tribunes, and the people's assemblies.
The Roman Republic was a masterpiece of political engineering and a deeply flawed one. At the top sat the Senate, hundreds of wealthy aristocratic men who debated policy, controlled the treasury, and guided Rome's expansion. 2 consuls were elected each year, a built-in redundancy designed to prevent any one man from seizing too much power. What the Romans created was sophisticated for its time, a layered system of government that tried to balance the interests of the aristocracy with ordinary citizens. It didn't always work, but the framework was revolutionary. The ordinary citizens, by the way, were only men. Women had no political rights. Slaves, and there were eventually millions of them, had none at all. The Republic was built on inequality as much as it was built on law. Whatever its political contradictions, the Republic had one thing the ancient world had rarely seen: a supremely effective military machine, the Roman legion. Organized, disciplined, and relentlessly adaptable, the legion was Rome's greatest invention. Soldiers trained constantly. They dug fortified camps every night on the march. They built roads, thousands of miles of them, so armies could move fast across vast distances. Through the 4th and 3rd centuries BCE, Rome conquered the Italian peninsula, not always through brute force, but through a shrewd combination of war, diplomacy, and incorporation. Former enemies became soldiers, former rivals became allies. But Rome's greatest test came not from within Italy, it came from across the sea. Carthage was a wealthy, powerful city-state on the northern coast of Africa, modern-day Tunisia. For centuries, it had dominated Mediterranean trade. The Second Punic War, from 218 to 201 BCE, nearly destroyed Rome entirely. A brilliant Carthaginian general named Hannibal Barca marched his army, elephants and all, over the Alps and into Italy itself. Hannibal was probably the greatest military genius of the ancient world. His tactics at the Battle of Cannae in 216 BCE, where he encircled and destroyed a Roman army of over 70,000 men, are still studied in military academies today. But Rome refused to surrender. Eventually, Roman general Scipio Africanus defeated Hannibal at the Battle of Zama in 202 BCE. Carthage was finished, and Rome now controlled the Western Mediterranean. By the 2nd century BCE, Rome ruled an empire stretching from Spain to Greece. Wealth, poured into the city. Slaves flooded in by the hundreds of thousands, and the republic started to crack. The old system, designed for a city-state, was buckling under the weight of empire. The urban poor grew restless. Two brothers tried to fix it, Tiberius and Gaius Gracchus. The Senate had them killed, both of them. The last century of the Republic is a story of extraordinary men doing extraordinary and terrible things. Gaius Marius reformed the Roman army. His rival Sulla marched his legions on Rome itself, twice became dictator, slaughtered his enemies, and then retired. It was a warning no one heeded. Gaius Julius Caesar is perhaps the most famous Roman who ever lived. He was a brilliant general, a gifted writer, a masterful politician, and, depending on your point of view, either the savior of Rome or its destroyer. His conquest of Gaul between 58 and 50 BCE was a military achievement of staggering scale. He fought hundreds of battles, built bridges across the Rhine, even briefly invaded Britain. In January 49 BCE, Caesar crossed the Rubicon, the legal boundary no general was allowed to cross with an army, and marched on Rome. Civil war followed. Caesar won. And then, on the Ides of March, 44 BCE, a group of senators stabbed him to death on the floor of the Senate. 23 stab wounds. He was 55 years old. The final confrontation came at the Battle of Actium in 31 BCE. Octavian versus Antony and Cleopatra. Octavian won. Antony and Cleopatra fled to Egypt, where they both took their own lives. The Republic was over. What came next would last 500 years. Octavian was smart enough to know that Romans hated kings, so he didn't call himself one. He accepted the title Augustus, the revered one, and kept the Senate and old institutions. But in practice, he held nearly absolute power. His reign inaugurated the Pax Romana, the Roman peace. For roughly 200 years, the Mediterranean world enjoyed unprecedented stability. Rome reached the peak of its power. Perhaps 1 million people in the city itself, 50 to 90 million across the empire. For the wealthy, Roman life could be magnificent. Sprawling townhouses, exotic food, art and philosophy. For the average Roman, life was more modest. Most people lived in cramped apartment buildings called insulae, bought food from street vendors, and went to the public baths to wash and socialize. The eruption of Vesuvius in 79 CE froze a Roman town in time. Pompeii gives us an astonishing window into daily life. Graffiti on walls, bread still in the ovens, the shapes of people caught in the ash. They were, in many ways, startlingly familiar. From the 3rd century CE onward, Rome faced crisis after crisis, political instability, plague, economic decline, and military pressure from Germanic tribes in the north and the Persian Empire in the east. In 410 CE, Rome was sacked by a Visigoth army. Citizens who had grown up believing Rome was eternal watched barbarian soldiers loot the streets. The Western Empire staggered on for a few more decades. Then, in 476 CE, the last Western emperor was quietly deposed. No one declared the end of Rome. The lights just went out. And that is the story of eternal Rome. And that is the story of eternal Rome. If you enjoyed this journey through history, hit that like button and subscribe to the channel so you never miss our next adventure into the ancient world.